Hello, and welcome to Pressing Buttons. I'm Hugo,
I'm Nick.
and episode 59 coming at you. Another great week, another great episode of Pressing Buttons. Good to be here, guys. Good to be here. Quick reminder, if you do listen to this podcast or watch this podcast on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and follow us wherever you are listening or viewing this because it helps us. And that way we know people are actually listening and we're not crazy. But for those that don't, please do. And for those that do, thank you. We appreciate it. But yeah, we don't have any jokes or anything for the start of this episode. April Fools came and went, and I'm glad I didn't get fooled by anything stupid on the internet usually, which I don't. I think
I don't think there was any. I think this has
major
been
fool.
consistent for the last several years. There's just nothing even remotely funny. Maybe it's just because I'm getting old, but I just feel like there's not a big effort going into these things anymore.
Yeah, and before every now and then something would sneak by in the video game industry that would fool people, but I don't think we had anything this weekend or this April Fools that was like, oh, that might be true, and then it's like, nope, April Fools.
Yeah, I don't know. I think everyone is guarded enough to know to not really believe anything. So I think it's become more of like a comedy. Like
Yeah,
it's clearly not something that's real, but it's either clever or funny or something like that. And I just really haven't seen any of those in recent history.
yeah, and I think companies these days are now with like their games, they do different game modes or just add weird random things to the games. I know Overwatch had like googly eyes for their characters. In League of Legends, there was stuff across the map. In For Honor, you could the enemies had sheep's and wolf's heads instead of the normal head. So that was pretty cool and pretty fun. I'd rather they do that than try to trick us with some stupid joke that doesn't work and just gets the fan base angrier and angrier. But, going right into the episode, we're just going to start with the news for the week. First thing we actually want to talk about is our Resident Evil Remake Pressing Buttons review. Damn it, I don't have
That was very
well,
dramatic, dude.
you know what? I forgot which button I have for the applause, so that's why I didn't hit it. And then like I don't want to hit the wrong button, and then another. Well, anyways, super hyped. Pressing buttons. Resident Evil 4 remake review. Like Nick and I said last week, we really enjoyed the game, and we weren't done with it, so we didn't want to give our full thoughts on it until now. So now we do want to give our full thoughts on it after we finish the game. I'll start off. I think it was a great remake. Obviously, it is a remake from a great game that released years ago that was beloved, and it got released multiple times on PlayStation, on Xbox, on PC, and so on and so on. Even though it was only going to be a GameCube exclusive when it released, so it's kind of funny that it had so many iterations. But story-wise, I think it's okay. The Resident Evil story is always a little bit convoluted. You don't know why these characters are here, doing what. Ada Wong's alive, and then she's there and helping you out and all that stuff. But the whole premise of the story, where you're trying to rescue the president's daughter, is neat and cool. And I think especially when this game came out all those years ago, that they kind of shifted where everything was focused on the Umbrella Corporation in Raccoon City, and then you kind of shifted to Europe, and you have Las Plagas and all that, and it kind of shifted the narrative to it being like a viral disease that's where it originated from, and that's where they would be getting the virus for Raccoon City. So I thought that was cool, and it still holds up really well. Gameplay wise, I think the game functions really well. I always liked the third person action, and it was more fast paced when it originally released, which was a big departure from their normal way that they did the gameplay for all the other Resident Evil. So I really enjoyed that, and I think overall, like I said, strong game. A lot of people wonder why they make these remakes, remasters of these old games, and I think this is a great example for it, just because it adds enough where it feels fresh for new players. And even if you weren't a new player, it's a great game, so you still enjoy it anyways, even if you're experiencing it for the first time. And it looks great. Capcom did a great job. I had no hiccups at all with the performance, even though we've been having a lot of performance issues with a lot of games released on PC and just overall in this new age of gaming with patches and stuff like that. But I had no issues at all, and I enjoyed it. What are your thoughts on Resident Evil? I know you really put in a lot of work, which, by the way, I only did one playthrough on hardcore because it asked you in the beginning if you played Resident Evil 4 before. Hardcore is okay, so I thought it was like, all right. And it was all right. I only really had issues when there were like mobs of enemies that I had to take out, and I didn't have a lot of ammo resources or anything like that. What about you? What are your thoughts, and how many playthroughs did you have?
I did it. I beat the game after purchasing Resident Evil 4. Again, I can't remember whether this was the third time I bought it or the fourth time, but after repeated purchases, I finally beat a version of Resident Evil 4, which I was excited about, and then I immediately beat it again. So I did two full playthroughs. I guess it's been out for a couple weeks now, so that's basically unheard of for me. I don't know if I've ever immediately gone back into a game and beat it again.
Yeah, that's one comment I wanted to make. I was like, that's weird, especially as you were texting in the chat about how like, oh, I'm going in for a second run, and I'm like, Nick, going in for a second run on a game, must be good.
Yeah, no, I obviously I enjoyed it. I think the only other time I got close to doing that was with the Demon Souls remake on PS5, where I beat it. I absolutely loved it. I beat it on PS3, and then I beat it on PS5 at launch, and then I just wanted to go through it again with some wacky builds, and I think I maybe got halfway through it, but didn't quite get to the finish line. So yeah, I think this is the first time I've beaten a new game twice back to back. So that should tell people a lot about how I think about this game. Like I absolutely loved it. For my first playthrough, I just did they call it standard or normal. I think the prompt is, have you played Resident Evil 4 before? And I wasn't really sure how to answer that because I bought it, I played it a little bit, but then I would always tune out of it for whatever reason. So I was like, let me just play it safe. I don't want to make the game too hard, and basically just like stop playing it because I get annoyed or frustrated or whatever. So I played it safe and did standard. It was probably I think it was too easy. So I think in hindsight, I probably could have just gone directly to hardcore. I don't think hardcore was that much more difficult. I think that like things are more expensive to buy at the shop. Maybe enemies have a little more damage. I don't know. So it just wasn't that much more hard. So I would definitely recommend just going directly to hardcore if you have some familiarity with Resident Evil games. I guess just to follow your structure of breaking down the game, starting with the story, it's Resident. I mean, it was fine. Like it's just kind of a simple rescue the president's daughter story. Some of the specific situations get like a little ridiculous with the whole, like the virus.
Baby Eagle, got to rescue Baby Eagle.
Yeah. So, but it was totally. I mean, I think for like where the source material is a video game from 2015 or
no, I think it was like 2005.
2005. Yeah, 2005. And it was 2005. So, 2005. I thought it was fine. I think they made some tweaks here and there to kind of refresh the story a little bit. But so the story's a little weird, but like at the same time, like I actually really enjoyed all the characters. Like I thought all the characters were great. I thought probably most notably is Ashley, where I think Ashley kind of became where I think in the first game maybe she was just kind of this like kind of like annoying typical rescue character. Which I know that sometimes it like frustrates a lot of people when you have these like escort quests. Like I think that doesn't, people often don't like doing that in certain games, but I thought it was totally fine. I thought the gameplay mechanic was engaging, and I thought Ashley's character was like pretty unique and funny and had a lot of personality. So So yeah, I thought those are great updates. Graphically, the game just looks incredible. So I don't know if I have too much to add there. I thought it was a very solid PC port. I maybe had a couple stuttering issues, but it wasn't anything to get too worked up about. So I was really happy with how it performed in PC. The gameplay is just fun. Like I don't know how to describe it, but just like the core gameplay, putting you in intense moments, the pacing. Like I think the chapters, just the way they break down the chapters, just like works really well. Where yeah, I don't know. It's like it was good. The shooting was really fun. All the different kind of like secrets and finding like skips, and I thought the way that they design the game gives people a lot of creativity and or opportunities to be creative and flexible with how they like actually get through the chapters. So that was one of the big drivers of me wanting to go through the second playthrough again. Whereas I started seeing a bunch of YouTube videos about all these tricks and secrets, and I'm like, oh my god, like I want to experiment with that. I didn't know you could do that, and so I thought it was just yeah, it's a great setup. I think that's it.
Yeah, and I wanted to comment real quick on your assessment of the Ashley actress and well, her gameplay and how she behaved. I think it's definitely an improvement from what I remember playing the original. I feel like it was annoying. It was annoying protecting her. It was annoying like watching out for her. And in this one, they kind of it is important to do that, but it wasn't as annoying. Like it didn't feel like crushing when somebody took her or something like that. So I think they did a great job with that.
Yeah.
And with in regards to the just voice acting and all that and all the other characters, I think they did a great job. Obviously, it's a remake, so a lot of people maybe had felt a lot of nostalgia to the old characters. I know on the internet they've been harassing the voice actress for Ada Wong, which is like annoying. It's stupid. I don't know why you would do that. It's a voice actress. Like it's her job. If you don't like it, that's fine. You don't have to harass anybody for it. But I think it was overall. Great cast. Leon did great. Ashley did great. Ada did great, and I think Major Krauser or Kruger. I know
Krauser.
yeah, I know it's kind of German. Krauser was pretty good. I think it just kind of expanded the whole story of it of their thing. Which again, the story's always weird. Like there's no mention of why he schooled Leon on how to do CQC, but it's just there. And why is he like trying to help Salazar and Sadler, not Salazar, Sadler and all that? It's just kind of weird, but it is what it is. The game's enjoyable regardless of that. I think you should definitely pick it up if you haven't. Whenever you get the opportunity, it's definitely worthy remaster/remake. And then on the heels of that, I did want to ask, what are your thoughts going forward in the future? There hasn't been a mainline announcement. Obviously, they did release Resident Evil 8/Village a couple years back, and they kind of still release a lot of content up to a couple months ago where they released a big DLC for that. And they did say they want to kind of get back to the third-person action. They want to steer away from the first-person horror, which I think worked really well for them in Resident Evil 7 and 8. But they kind of want to go back to the story of maybe Umbrella, maybe the main characters, Leon, Claire, Chris, even though Chris is like some macho government agent now or whatever. But what are your thoughts on the future? Do you think with the success of all these remakes, are they going to go back to third-person action? Are they going to make the next one mainline Resident Evil, let's say Resident Evil 9? Or do you think that they're okay with doing remakes? There are hints, obviously, of Resident Evil 5 in this one, so a lot of people are thinking that Resident Evil 5 would get the remake treatment. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think with Resident Evil 4 remake, they had almost like a cheat code because the game itself is like beloved. I think for a lot of people, Resident Evil 4 is their favorite Resident Evil game. With Resident Evil 5, I feel like that one's much more mixed. So I think the the source material might not be as strong as it was with Resident Evil 4. So it makes me wonder how, if they do a Resident Evil 5 remake, like how many creative liberties do they take to try to like fix the source material, if that makes sense, as opposed to maybe the approach that they took with Resident Evil 4. Yeah, like Resident Evil 5 is similar, where I have like the Xbox like special edition Resident, so it's like I played Resident Evil 5 and it just wasn't it wasn't that good. So I don't know, like there's
Not
part of me,
memorable at all. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
remember much about it.
so there's part of me that, yeah, I really don't know. Like I'm guessing that they're just going to continue remaking Resident Evil titles up until I guess that would be like Resident Evil 5. I would love to see Code Veronica, but I just feel like that one is maybe a little bit too obscure. Resident Evil 6 is like, that'd be too.
Yeah, that one wasn't well received as well.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's a tough one. I think I didn't look that closely at the sales data, but Resident Evil 4 remake just had like insane sales numbers. So when they're thinking around, at least for future titles, so whether that's Resident Evil 9 or some spin-off series, like I have to imagine they're taking that information and in hand and saying like, okay, maybe it's less like Resident Evil Village, maybe it's more like Resident Evil 4. Maybe I'm just projecting my own bias, because I definitely like the more action orient, like it's more of like an action game that has some scary, spooky elements to it, as opposed to the other way around, where it's more of like a horror game. So I don't know. I think this is like it's very much a philosophical question from the developer's perspective in terms of what type of games they want to make, but I think they must be seeing these like sales data and be like, like shit, maybe we got to lean into that again, which I think after going through Resident Evil 4 remake, I might, and you guys were kind of prodding me to check out Resident Evil 8, but I'm just like, nah. I just kind of like, I've seen enough. I think I've played a demo and I've played I've seen trailers and movies, and I'm just like, like I don't know. Like I just bring Leon back. Maybe Ashley. I think they were kind of, suggesting that maybe she has a future, becoming some sort of agent or something like that. Like, so I think if the game is the Leon and Ashley like buddy cop movie, like I think that game basically sells itself. So.
Well, the thing is too that Village and what was it? Village, Resident Evil 7 and 8. I forget what the name for 7 was, but I think it was Biohazard or something. Resident Evil 7 something, and then Resident Evil 8 Village. I think that was in direct response to the bad reception from 5 and 6. It was panned worldwide, I think, in terms of story and just like what's going on at this point. So that's why they kind of wanted to. It was one of those periods where a lot of studios were like, let's take our beloved franchises and then just twist them around or just do something completely different, which worked, I think, really well, because I enjoyed both 7 and 8. I think they were great. But I do want to kind of go back to the original characters. Obviously, story-wise, they do have to advance the story, because all these remakes are kind of stuck in the late 90s, early 2000s. So you're like, all right, let's catch up to these guys that are in their 40s still battling the Umbrella Corporation or something like that. I would love for them to get back to something like that, and obviously do some sort of third-person action where, like you said, it's more action, but it also has the horror, spooky elements that make you tense every now and then. So I think they should definitely do that. And I can't wait to hear, obviously, Capcom doesn't really take too much time between their franchises in terms of announcing something new. So I feel like there's an imminent announcement coming soon, probably maybe this summer, of any future plans for the titles. So there you go. That's it for us in terms of Resident Evil. Well, what our thoughts are. Obviously, we give it 2 thumbs up over here at Pressing Buttons. We definitely think you should play it and get your hands on it whenever you can.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, so far it's my game of the year.
Game of the year.
Yeah, acknowledging that there's a lot of heavy hitters coming out, throughout the rest of the year. But if you were to ask me now, game of the year, it's all right for a remake.
Wow. And just a couple of weeks ago, you were complaining about people saying, cool, calm down. It's only the first 3 months of the year and you're already giving this game of the year. But totally understandable.
Well, that was for Hi-Fi Rush. Then that was January. And the game is good, but not not that good. So the other thought I had was, this is kind of going back to around when the PlayStation VR 2 launched and me deliberating whether I actually wanted to buy one or not, and I decided to wait and see. Really, the only thing at the time was Gran Turismo 7, basically being the killer app for PSVR 2. I don't know if they've announced the date yet, but I think there will be a Resident Evil 4 remake VR version, which would that could be that could be enough to, if it's that and Gran Turismo.
It's a fresh experience of a great game, so I think
so that could be pretty wild. Yeah, so we'll see how they translate it to VR, but I think people have generally been very happy with the Resident Evil VR experiences. So I'm just being optimistic that Resident Evil 4 remake will be the same. So I guess I just wanted to throw that out there as something I'm looking forward to see more of, and then maybe that's enough to get me to buy a PSVR 2.
Only the future will tell, and we'll see if you get it. All right, moving on to the next topic we want to talk about is the cancellation of E3, which honestly bummed me out. I think it bummed Nick a little bit out too, because we were certainly hoping to make it out there to LA for E3 and just take in the sights. I've never been to E3, and I don't think Nick has either. Have you?
Nope.
But yeah. So we were kind of, that was one of our trips that we were planning this year in terms of gaming conventions or just gaming events, so we could get some coverage and bring it to you guys, our listeners and our viewers. Unfortunately, it got canceled. Obviously, there's been a couple publishers that have either dropped out or kind of hinted that they weren't going to make any events around E3. Microsoft had already said that they were doing their own thing. Sony was kind of hinting about it. Nintendo's all been doing their own thing for the last couple of years, where they just do a big keynote event. And then one of the big publishers, Ubisoft, just recently announced last week that they were also pulling out. So that was kind of the nail on the coffin, where it kind of pushed everybody to say, hey, we're canceling it. Obviously, with COVID, I think this was going to be the first official E3 live event that they had done in 3 years. So that was a factor into it. Also, a lot of the publishers not having anything to kind of showcase, or not wanting to spend a lot of resources in doing a in-person event, when it's more financial effective to just do a video and release it on the internet. You don't have to waste as much money. It is a bit sad. Hopefully for me, like I said, it's an event that I've always heard about since I was a kid, and I got into video games, and it's like there's a convention where you can play all these games and they tell you about the future games, and there's gamers there. It's something that I've always wanted to go to. So hopefully for me, I would say it's not fully canceled or shut down. Hopefully they kind of just regroup, figure it out or whatever, and throw it again next year, and then maybe we can go, because I think it is something that the community needs. I know Jeff Keighley has Games Fest, Summer's Game Fest, and that's kind of more, I would say it's a showcase, but it doesn't have that community feel to it, I would say, because you don't have the booths and all that stuff. You don't have people crowding around and doing impressions and stuff like that. Maybe Summer's Games Fest will become the next E3, but just have something like this in general. What are your thoughts on this?
Total bummer. I've somehow never gone to one. Always wanted to go to one. since I was probably a young teenager. I don't know, like since it basically started, I've been wanting to go to one. Yeah, it's canceled. Like to me, like the vibe I'm getting is that this thing's just it's never coming back. So it's a bit of a bummer. I know the show's changed. The show's been evolving quite a bit over the years. So I don't think it's the same experience now versus like when I was a kid and kind of, dreamed about going to this magical, this magical place. So it's evolved a bit. But having said that, like I still think I would have enjoyed, going to it just to almost as like a bucket list item of, if I can say I've gone to an E3. Maybe it wasn't the biggest and best one, just because again, given how much has changed over the years, but it still would have been nice to do one. So yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. And then yeah, I think so GDC happened a few weeks ago, 2 to 3 weeks ago, and there was a lot of Twitter chatter coming out of GDC where people were asking others who were attending GDC, like, "Hey, what are you doing at E3? What's going on at E3?" And just basically no one had like anything to say. So I think the ESA kind of like had to address it, just because people were starting to like raise a bunch of questions and all that. So I'm not surprised. It's a bummer, and it also would have been fun for us just to give us an excuse to go to LA, and that would have been your I think your first time being in LA, right?
Yeah, haven't made it to the West Coast.
Yeah,
There's not
yeah,
a lot of
so,
reasons to go, but this one would have been
yeah.
a good
In-N-Out
one.
Burger, E3. What more do you need?
Yeah,
But
we'll see.
again, it's a bummer. But I think there's other trade shows. I still think, well, for reasons, I don't think we'll make it to TGS or Tokyo Game Show this year. But to me, like the big two similar events basically become Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show. So maybe there's a world where we can make it over there and do our trip.
Yeah, and one thing which I would love to get your opinion, but I think one thing is just that affects them, and I think why they've had a struggle the last couple of years is they haven't evolved, I would say, in terms of presentation and just setting up the show and all that. Whereas, like I said earlier, you see all these other companies doing their own thing, doing their own video showcases and just presenting that. And I think the organizers at E3, the ESA, and all that, they've kind of stuck in their old ways where they do want to throw this grand event, and it's just not financially feasible. So I think that's hurting them a lot. Where if they put their minds to it and just kind of make the show evolve, where it could be a remote thing, but also an in-person event thing with a lot better security and guarantees for the publishers and developers, because that was the other thing. I know, like one of the last few ones, a lot of like the journalist information got leaked just because it was available online on their website with no security or anything like that. It eroded the trust that people had in them. So I think they just need to take a long, hard look at themselves and just say, how can we make this better, and just bring everybody back. I would definitely want to see that, and hopefully they kind of learn that they need to do that.
Yeah, I'm not too plugged into the inner workings of this, but so in addition to just like cost, I think there's a growing desire by developers and publishers just to have more control over how they communicate with their fans. My guess is E3 was very expensive, and they were probably, it kind of sounds like they weren't like necessarily the best to like work with. The other thing is just like whenever you have this like fixed point in time that you need to like have a meaningful amount of information, like that can become very challenging given the complexity of developing games and how those timelines can vary and change and all of that. So whenever you have all these fixed points in your timeline, it kind of creates this like stress and potential like crunch on the team to be able to like create content for that specific event. So there might have been a desire just to be like, okay, let's just remove one of these and have more control over like what we want to share and when. So I think that might be like another consideration as well.
Yep, but hopefully no RIP E3. Hopefully it comes back.
I think it's done, dude.
Damn it.
I think it's done.
Don't crush my dreams.
Yeah.
Speaking of events, next topic we want to talk about is EVO Japan. As you guys know, we did want to make it out to Japan after a great experience at EVO Vegas last year. Unfortunately, ticket prices were too high, and it was also the first EVO Japan that they've done in the last 3 years because of the pandemic. Also, new venue, but it did take place this weekend in Japan, and we were able to watch a couple of the matches on Twitch. It was a little bit of a hassle just because they were taking place at like in between 1 to, well, actually not 1, but more like 10 p.m. to like 5
more like
a.m.
10 p.m. Yeah.
To like 5 a.m. in the morning over the weekend. So it's kind of hard to, go about your day and stay up to watch it. Also, obviously, because it's been the first one in the last 3 years, there wasn't a lot of attendees. It did look desolate. Like there wasn't a lot of people in there, not a lot of cheering. And I think it being in Japan and us not being there didn't feel the same. I know we had a great time when we went to Vegas, but we were up close and personal. We were kind of experiencing everything, all the booths, all the competitions, all the fights and all that stuff. And then we were able to experience the grand finals on the big stage and just see how competitive it got. And it was also a very competitive grand finals for all the games that I think were played, where they were very competitive. They went down to the wire, whether it was a best of 5, best of 3, or resetting brackets or anything like that. This one was kind of lackluster, I would say, in presentation. But I can't fault it too much because, like I said, it's the first one they've done in a while, and hopefully the prestige is there. And we do get the chance to go back and experience it in Japan because even though it was a bit lackluster, I would say from both of our opinions, I think we do want to still experience it, and it could definitely get back to the heights that it had before. What were your thoughts? Did you watch any good matches or anything like that?
It was tough, man. I mean, the time zone's so brutal, and I think there was just so many logistics issues with people, streaming or like matches happening on time and things getting delayed, and so it was really tough to try to follow it. So I think all I really saw was Giuna did on Twitch. He did basically like a IRL stream where he's just kind of like walking around the convention and talk. We saw him play some matches, and he's just like talking to people. So I watched that for basically however long he streamed, and I was like, that's good enough. Like that was enough for me to experience that, because it kind of sounds like it was not the most well-run tournament, and made me feel good about our decision, because I think that was like, I'm like, it's the first one in a while. It's in this new convention,
we still would have had a great time because it's Japan.
we would have had a good time, but like not because of the convention. All right, I mean, it still would have been fun, but like I just feel like it would have also been frustrating trying to like watch stuff while we're there, just because everything's all over the place. And yeah, like I think the grand finals for all the main games were kind of like people just getting blown out of the water, which I think every major game it was a 3-0 or 6, like that just that doesn't happen. Like, so the grand finals ended up not being like that hype to watch. So but yeah, so I watched the Juna stream, and then maybe a little bit I think I watched the grand finals for Guilty Gear, and I think that was it. Then I'm like, I'm not staying up till 5 a.m. to watch Street Fighter.
Yeah, and you could kind of tell that was kind of going to be the effect of it, just because a lot of the English commentators, whether it's from overseas or the States, They didn't make it out there. They did. Capcom did have like a commentator's booth that was kind of running a little setup space where they would rotate in and out, and that was pretty fun.
That wasn't Capcom. Just to be, it was
Well,
it was
Evo,
Yeah,
my bad, Evo.
There's some sensitivity.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry. Evo had like their own group doing like a little from a remote place, just kind of commentating. But you definitely, it's not the same because, like I said, we experienced it live. We had the commentators there, and they were part of the action with the action, and just kind of just seeing them. They were just watching it on Twitch like us, so it kind of was the same thing. But hopefully it gets back to it. I know when we went to Japan 4 or 5 years ago, Evo was around the same time, and we did try to make it out there. And I think there was much more hype around that time than this one, obviously. But we'll see. We'll see next year. And then Street Fighter 6 will be out by then, so that'll be the hype up of the tournament. So, all right. And then moving on from that, another big gameplay demo that they released this week was Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Eiji Aonuma, I think I said that right, did a 10-minute video just showcasing some new Tears of the Kingdom gameplay footage. Obviously, with Breath of the Wild being such a massive hit and how it kind of changed the game in terms of how people perceive Zelda, which kind of every new iteration of Zelda does that, I think, just because they always try to mix up the formula and do different things. This one definitely lives up to that, just because even if it's just running on like the Breath of the Wild engine, you still get enough new gameplay and new features that you're seeing. It's a direct sequel, but you're going to be doing a lot more stuff with it. They did show off some new powers, recall, which can kind of rewind time for certain things, fuse, which lets you fuse weapons or whatever, make new things, which look cool. Ultra hand, which lets you move things around and combine things, and ascend, which lets you jump and pass through walls. Obviously, I think they said that there's going to be more powers. They didn't want to show off too many things. But this kind of expands on the Breath of the Wild formula of having a lot of control of the universe, having a lot of control of what you can make, what you could do in the universe. And I know we've seen a lot of videos of people like just doing insane things in Breath of the Wild. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more insane videos of what people can do with Tears of the Kingdom, just crafting and making things and just, jumping on them islands, trying to get up there and all that stuff. I'm enjoying it. Like I said, I don't think Breath of the Wild to me was my favorite Zelda. I enjoyed every Zelda. I just don't feel like the types of Zelda that give me too much freedom are my type of Zeldas. I like the mainline ones that just kind of move me from dungeon to dungeon, get a weapon, move on to the next one, get a weapon, move on to the next one type of thing. I think I enjoyed those more, but I can't deny that Breath of the Wild, great game regardless of that, and then Tears of the Kingdom looking up to be another great game. What are your thoughts on this? I know you were a big Zelda fan, Breath of the Wild, and you don't like too much Nintendo stuff, but I know you like this one.
No, I think I've been pretty consistent where I think this will be hopefully my last game I buy on the Switch, just because I want to move on to the next generation of Nintendo hardware at some point. So, no, I thought the trailer looked super fun. As you said, it seems like they're embracing a lot of the creativity that they probably saw players doing in Breath of the Wild, where people were just doing all sorts of wild and crazy stuff to sequence break the game or speed run or whatever, or just being silly. Like people just do wild and crazy stuff. So that seems to be core to the game now, which is pretty interesting. So it looked like a lot of fun, barring any like egregious performance issues with actually playing the game. I'll be getting that at launch. So
yeah, I don't think it should have performance issues just because it's kind of running.
It looked fine. Yeah, I mean it looked fine, but who knows? It was like
it's just Breath of the Wild 2 with more stuff.
But yeah, there's more verticality to it though. Like I think that would, like it's got to be way bigger than Breath of the Wild, I would think. I don't know.
Yeah, but one thing about Nintendo, when it comes to their titles, I think they know the full extent and power of their devices, of their consoles. So and they always give enough time to fully develop the game instead of kind of rushing it, or just releasing an unfinished product that has to get patched and patched and patched, like we've seen the last couple of months with a lot of titles. I think they know what they're doing, and you know not to try and jinx it, but I think it'll be a flawless title when it releases, and you know why Nintendo's Nintendo.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's what I want to believe. So, but no, I thought it looked like a lot of fun, kind of what I would hope to see from a sequel from Breath of the Wild. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we're gonna see that much more of it. Like maybe they do one more video, but like
Yeah,
I
they'll
don't.
probably do like one more launch, like a launch trailer, just to kind
Yeah,
of. Well, that's it.
but that's probably which I'm fine with. Like I was happy to see that footage, but I don't really need to see any more from it. I'd rather just kind of get into it.
Yeah, and then they also announced that well, the game obviously has gone gold, and it's still set for release May 12th, 2023. But they did also announce Tears of the Kingdom Switch OLED, which is releasing April 28th, which looks cool. If I didn't have a Switch already, or if I wasn't worried about a new Switch coming out next year, I would get
Yeah,
it.
what sucker is gonna? I don't know.
There's
Like
gonna be a lot of
pe-
suckers. What are you
yeah,
talking
people.
about?
Yeah, people always buy these limited edition Zelda things. So just as a collector, but it's still got to feel bad. Like you're gonna buy this thing and then it's like immediately obsolete, like in a year. That's kind of what I would think. But
You gotta do the Rick and Morty method. You just buy the collector's edition, sell the console, then flip it, then buy another one and flip it again.
yeah,
All right. Moving on to the next topic is one thing. Another title we wanted to discuss is MultiVersus. I know we haven't really discussed this that much. We did. Well, I did at least play the beta when it released. I think you played it as well, but just maybe
oh
for
yeah.
a little bit. Highly promising, I would say. It did win Fighter of the Year at the Game Awards, but basically, the studio announced that they are taking the title offline June 25th. They will take it from the stores on April 4th, so you won't be able to download it after April 4th. And offline gameplay, well, it's only online, so no more gameplay after June 25th. The game is going to get fully released on in 2024. No exact date yet. It's kind of weird because with these type of games, I always feel like they've always gone from beta into full release, and this one's like gone from beta back in the box, and then we're gonna come back to you and talk and see what's up next year. It is a fun game. I think, unfortunately, the last couple of months, I think it doesn't have a big user base. I believe the numbers were showing about 600 people were kind of actively playing the game. It is a fun game in terms of the gameplay and the characters and the new take on the Smash type genre, and that's its main competitor, Super Smash Brothers. Any of those, just to kind of get all these Warner Brother characters and throw them in there and see what sticks. And some of the gameplay features obviously weren't fully out. I know there was a lot of game modes that they were promising. They did do 2 full seasons, which you could purchase and get new costumes for the characters and get new characters. But it is kind of weird, I just say, in that sense of having a full year, because I think it did release last year in the summer, having a full year of just being in beta and then getting yanked back and then waiting till next year for it to be released. Hopefully this doesn't start a trend of games that will just release a beta and then getting full release. I know on Steam they do have the early access where you can play the game, even before they patch everything up, even though it's not fully developed. But then that eventually leads into the full release, and you still have the game, whereas this is just completely getting shelved. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is like a trend that you might start seeing for future games?
I think this is probably an outlier. I don't know if I've seen such an extreme beta like beta period. Like Diablo just had a open beta like weekend, and so it's like, okay, that was a pretty long weekend that they just did, and then they're gonna make the game not available for players and make it available again down the road. So I don't know. I feel like there's something else going on that's probably driving that specific approach. But I don't know, just being optimistic. Like maybe that's fine. Like maybe they just didn't want to be distracted by trying to like maintain the game while trying to make whatever improvements they want to make and build out the content pipeline that they want to create. So I think that might have been another thing, was like there wasn't that much. It is a free to play game, so you kind of need to have a healthy roadmap of content, new content coming into the game to keep people engaged. And maybe they just like didn't because if they actually believe that there was a beta, they probably didn't have that much stuff built out. So maybe they just need to pull it back in and give themselves some more breathing room to be able to sustain, a more of like a live service, free to play type game. So, but I played it for, not a ton, but maybe for like a few days. I would just kind of mess around with it. It was a fun game. It's a good alternative to Smash if you don't have, if you're not like deep into the Nintendo ecosystem, and you actually want to play online, which playing Smash online isn't necessarily the best experience. So if you really cherish online play, I feel like it's a good option for a Smash type game. So yeah, I'd like to think, it's a little wacky, but hopefully they can come back strong when they re-release the game.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Like you said, even though they were wacky characters and all that, it was still a fun and enjoyable game. You just have to have that push of players, push of marketing and all that stuff, which also kind of makes you wonder if everything going on in the behind the scenes with Warner Brothers and the shuffling of the studios and people and all that stuff had anything to do with this. Obviously, we are hoping for the best, that they fully release next year with more modes and all that stuff, but it's hard to maintain these live service games, especially when, it doesn't have that draw of like a Nintendo and their backlog of classic characters or something like that. So hopefully we'll see it good next year.
Yeah, it's also funny that it won Fighting Game of the Year in beta.
That's unprecedented.
So yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard of that.
Well. All right, next topic is Last of Us. As many of you know, Naughty Dog released a PC port of The Last of Us Remastered, which is already out on PlayStation 5. High expectations for this one, obviously, with the show ending and a lot of people getting more interest in The Last of Us, whether it's new fans or just fans of the original, kind of wanting to have a fresh experience and not having a PS5. We were expecting this to do great numbers just because of the marketing and the draw of playing The Last of Us and experiencing this, especially in PC with, the power of PCs, as Nick likes to say. But
I've literally never said that before, but okay.
Oh, well, all right. Maybe in my head you said it. I can see you. I can see you say it in my head. The power of PCs.
The power of PCs.
And then doing some stupid pose or something. All right, that is true though. You've never said that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like the release of it, it's been shit. The game is not looking good. There's been a lot of technical hiccups, bad graphics, bad gameplay, bad just Yankee stuff everywhere. And honestly, this hurts the PlayStation brand. This hurts the Sony brand. This hurts the Naughty Dog brand. Naughty Dog is known for releasing high quality content. I think this is one of the few titles that they've released that has been rated really low. I know they didn't really... that they weren't the only studio working on this PC port. Obviously, they're working on a couple different games, a new IP, and the Last of Us faction. So they couldn't, dedicate all their resources to this. But still, like to kind of oversee this, and even after a delay, getting delayed from March 3rd to March 23rd or whatever it is, almost a full month delay to kind of patch up and fix the game to make sure it's high quality when it releases, and to still have this bad of a release just looks bad. And I do feel for the people that purchase this, and one of those is you. So tell me about your experience.
Yeah, dude, it was devastating. So in a similar vein as Resident Evil 4. The Last of Us is a game that I've repeatedly purchased over the years and have never completed. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is going to be it. I'm going to get Last of Us on PC. I just, I'm broadly, like, I've played the game on PlayStation before. I watched the whole, HBO series. So I was like primed and ready to go. I was looking forward to a shiny PC version of this game. And I think I got it for like 40 something dollars. I would have been even more mad if I paid full price for it, but I was able to get it like at a discounted price. So it didn't hurt that bad. But yeah, but I, was all ready to go, installed the game. It just was performing terribly, and then basically crashed in like the first action sequence. And then I'm like, okay, like, what's going on here? And then if you just went to Twitter, like, people were going nuts about how poorly the game's performing, and posting a bunch of memes about how ridiculous Joel looks and all this other stuff. So yeah, it was really disappointing, and I was surprised by it. Like, I was giving PlayStation like a lot of kind of benefit of that, because usually I've been scrutinizing and questioning PC releases, generally being very patient and seeing how things perform, and maybe I get it on console versus PC. But with this, I was like, oh, like, they've been knocking it out of the park with recent PC versions. So I didn't even bother looking at, I also don't think they gave review copies to anyone. So I don't think there was, maybe that should have been like another signal that maybe something's awry. But I didn't wait to see like any PC performance impressions before getting into it. So that's something I regret. So
if only there was a version of the same title somewhere else that you could just play it, and I don't think had any issues. Oh wait, it's on PlayStation 5. You didn't have to wait for PC.
But I want to play with I want to play with mouse and keyboard.
Yeah,
That was like the big, because I don't honestly like the graphics. Like maybe they're a little better. I don't know, but like, to me, I feel like whenever they enabled VRR, which was probably a year ago. No,
yeah,
or it
about
was,
a year.
yeah, it was. Whenever that happened, I played Miles Morales on PS5, and then I was like, "This is PC. Like, this is basically PC gaming." And so I didn't even bother getting the PC version of Spider-Man, because I'm like, it's pretty damn good. Like, I don't think it's going to be like that much better, if at all. Really, this was more kind of like mouse and keyboard driven, similar with Resident Evil 4, actually, where I think maybe another reason I enjoyed that more versus playing it on a fucking purple GameCube controller was like the mouse and keyboard controls. Like, it's just like way better for me. Like, I really enjoyed that. So that's another driver. So, but I know there's a lot of people like pointing fingers at the PC community for like, oh, well, if only you had a PlayStation 5, you could have played this game. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but
Yeah, I mean, that's the main thing. Like you said, if only you had a PS5. But now a lot of people have access to it, and obviously when that was the big push. If you don't have a PS5, it's coming out for PC, so play it on PC. It'll be a great version. And unfortunately, it didn't deliver, which is very strange. It lost, I believe, a lot of goodwill with the community. The last couple of PC ports for PlayStation titles, whether it's Horizon, Days Gone,
God of War was awesome.
God of War, Spider-Man, like those titles release. I believe some of them release maybe with a little hiccup now and then, but nothing major where it's unplayable like the last couple, like a couple of PC games have been releasing lately. So hopefully they patch this up quick and the community gets back on their good side, just because it's a great title, and I do want more people to experience it, even if it's on PC. So hopefully they fix it right up.
Yeah, so I'm just patiently waiting for there to be significant patches and enough people saying that the game's actually okay to play now. So
All right.
the good news is I had Resident Evil 4 to keep me company, so I wasn't that upset about it.
Always have a backup game in case your main game is shit or plays like shit. All right, and that does it for all the news that we wanted to discuss this week. We are moving on to some straight closing thoughts. First off, I'll start with Fortnite. Still been playing Fortnite. It's pretty fun. I know they got like a Easter event going on right now, so I'm trying to grind those XP levels so I could get more cool Thunder skins. If you're not playing it, I would recommend it. It's a pretty fun season, especially with the swords and the new cyberpunkish, future punkish type world. And hit us up on Discord if you want to play with us. We are definitely active in there, playing a lot of Fortnite. Moving on from that, Resident Evil. Obviously, I just finished the campaign. I did do my hardcore run. It took me about 22 hours. I forget the exact amount. It wasn't pretty hard. It was only the parts where I had to defend myself against mobs. But I think overall, it was definitely a good experience. And if you have played it if you've played it before, I would definitely recommend playing it on hardcore mode just to give yourself like a bit of a challenge because it's not too hard. And then right off of that, the next game I wanted to play was Dead Space, but I didn't want to like do back-to-back horror games, main games to kind of finish. So I decided to purchase Wulong Fallen Dynasty. It's right up there with the kind of games I like in terms of Soulsborne type things, and I've been a big fan of their games with Neo and Ninja Gaiden and all that stuff. So I decided to pick up Wulong. I'm having fun so far. I know I haven't really dived into the whole armor system and the elements and all that stuff, so I will keep you guys updated on how that goes. In terms of TV shows, finished up Trigun Stampede, the first phase, as I think they're calling it, because they're going to do a second part. I believe it was 12 episodes. As a big fan of the original Trigun series, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I think they did enough to differentiate it to justify having a new series. And there's a lot of subtle changes, which if you're a fan of the original, you can see it, but also good callbacks to the original. And I can't wait for phase 2 because that'll introduce some characters that were missing from the first season, and also to kind of expand a different side of the Vash and Knives story. And then the one last thing is the Scott Pilgrim anime. I'm a big Scott Pilgrim versus the World fan. I have all the graphic novels, and I'm a big fan of the movie. I think Edgar Wright did a great job in terms of bringing the graphic novel to live action movie wise, and I think it's just one of the best movies ever done, just with the comedy and the action and all that stuff. And it's also kind of a launching pad. Well, not really a launching pad, but it does have a lot of big stars that like are A-listers now. It has Captain America, Chris Evans. It has Brandon Roof, Roof, whatever his name is,
Roth,
one of the Supermans, and it has Captain Marvel, Brie Larson. It just has so many people.
Aubrey Plaza,
just so many people that are recognizable these days. But they're all coming back to voice their characters in the anime, and I believe Edgar Wright is also working with it as well as the creator Brian Lee O'Malley. And like they said, they are kind of making it a similar experience with all the characters, but also making it a new experience because one, it is an anime, and two, they don't want to make a one-for-one of the movie, just like the movie wasn't a one-for-one of the graphic novel. So I'm excited for that. Be on the lookout for that. I can't wait to see it. What about you? What are your closing thoughts?
I kind of already covered it. It's basically Resident Evil 4 that basically took up all of my gaming time, other than I think we dabbled in Fortnite during game night. But other than that, it's Resident Evil 4. I got through 2 playthroughs. The first playthrough was on standard. I think it took me. I think I also had like 22 hours somewhere around there, but it's a bit of a. It's not a correct number because, and I don't know if I told you the story, but as I was playing the game, my toilet started overflowing. So my wife,
Damn.
my wife like crashed into the door and was just like, ah, and then I'm like, ah, fuck, and then it was bad, dude. Like, so I didn't like pause the game or anything, and I had to just like go deal with like it was just a mess. So that wasn't a great experience, but I think that probably added easily 2 hours of game time because I was like dealing with that and like
Speed running record destroyed by overflowing toilet.
Yeah. So that wasn't the best experience, but yeah, I think it was probably around 20 hours, even adjusting for that, because it was very much like I was walking everywhere. I was trying to do I think I missed maybe 2 quests because I got too far. I didn't realize that they would like go away if I got to a certain point. So
yeah, same thing. I think I missed like 1 or 2 as well.
Yeah. What were they? It was the fish one. There's one where you gotta like catch a fish in the lake.
Oh, I got that one.
You got that one? Yeah, I missed that one, and then I missed the like the bug home one where it's like you gotta shoot the tiny things in the nest.
Oh, I did that one too. Never mind. I did all of it.
Yeah. So I missed those 2, but I did all the other ones and like all the medallion. So I was like really taking my time with it, really like exploring everything, and then I went back into it on hardcore mode and got an A rank because I was able to beat the game in like 8 hours. And for an A rank, you just need to beat it in under 10 hours. So.
Damn, we got a speed runner pressing buttons.
Nah, there's people doing crazy shit on YouTube trying to speed run this game. So I did pick up on a couple of tricks, but I think over the coming weeks and months, people are going to find all sorts of creative ways to get through the game as quickly as possible. So I think with that, maybe wait and see a little bit on a PSVR 2 version, because I don't want to like play the game so much so that I then don't get interested in a PSVR 2. So I'm being like a little bit more careful around when I want to play the game again. So I think for now I'm good with it, but I definitely want to go back into it at some point and try to get play it on professional and see what the best rank I can get is.
Well, obviously too, you'll be able to play Mercenaries whenever that releases sometime in April. And I think some data miners on the internet found the Ada Wong other side. I forget the name of it, but basically like whatever she's up to during your whole run of the game, that DLC. So you'll definitely probably have good reasons to go back into the game.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, nice and tidy weekend. Shout out to our good friend Eddie Z, Zach. He had his son's first birthday. We attended that this weekend, so shout out to Eddie Z and little baby Eddie Z. He had a lot of cake. It was good. Zach, good job on the barbecuing, and good times.
Great BBQ, and we also discovered other lovers of the no build mode.
Yeah,
in Fortnite.
We're just making gaming friends wherever we go.
It's just so funny how people just be like, oh yeah, like I've hated building, and now that I don't build anymore, I love the game. I'm like, me too.
All right. Don't forget, if you are listening to this or watching this, please subscribe wherever you are. That way we can get more numbers up. And also, we know who's listening. But thank you guys for joining us on another episode of Pressing Buttons, and we'll see you next week on the next episode. I'm Hugo. Bye.
I'm Nick. Later.